everyone. Thank you once again for tuning into another exciting episode of the Iconis podcast. And before we get right into it, let's just get down to the brass tacks of it. First and foremost, I'm one of your hosts, Barry 3D. On my side, as always, the man, the myth, the legend. If you dancing, he's playing. My cousin,
Rod C. Yes, yes, yes.
what? Yes. But now it's a three window. It's a three window going on, right? And the third window is our friend Larry. And I know I'm going to mess up your last name, Larry. So I'm gonna let you. All right, Larry.
It's Reclusado, but we're just gonna call it Larry R from now on. All right,
Larry R. No, give yourself
Larry.
full credit because I'm bad with names, Larry, and I don't
Hey,
want to
that's
teach
fine.
you out. Yeah. So Larry, I came across and met Larry from his Facebook page that he manages, which is Forgotten, Obscure, and Underrated Comic Characters, which is a huge Facebook page. So if anyone wants to know about some of the stuff we talk about and want to see more, please tune into his Facebook page. And you got to go through the whole join up process, answer the questions properly. There's no skimping. And there we go. Follow the rules. All right. Keep it PG, keep it politically correct. There we go. Right. Everyone respect everybody. That's all it's about.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. I'm sorry, Larry. I'm telling you, I'm going to get the name right one day. It took me, maybe half a year to finally get Sokolowski, my boy, the name straight. And I was doing shows with him for 5 years prior. So
No problem.
flow. On that note, we're going to say, as Rod texted me the other night there, manners maketh the man, because that movie was on. We're going to do a quick round table. And remember, if you're going to have to go and get any kind of comic book memorabilia, comic books to start a comic book collection, you got to support the books. And the places to go to are one, you go out to Kitchener, you check out Wild Comics, tell Wes and the guys we said hi. You head out maybe Cambridge and go to a Hero's Tale, tell Andrew the guys we said hi. Or you go out to Montreal and you check out Check Swings and tell Trevor and the rest of the guys we said hi. These are all shows, the comic book stores that are behind us. And we like to just kind of share that love around. On top of that, as I said, I mentioned before, I also do comedy. So you can check me out at barry3d.com. That's my website. See everything that's going on, where I'm going to be next. And by the time this comes out, I've just came back from the Atlantic region doing a bit of a tour. So very happy. Hope you guys check it out. Also, when I do comedy, I'm also with my other comedy group there, which is A Touch of Gray Matter. That's myself, Dave Sokolowski, and Zulfal Lee. Keep us in the loop. You'll see some stuff coming in the new year. Rod, real quick, where can we find you?
You can find me on the World Wide Web, as I always say, on Instagram at Mr. Rod C. You can find me on twitch.tv at DJ Rod C. You can find me in the world of TikTok at DJ Rod C1. That's DJ Rod C1.
Beautiful. And of course, if you want to do a podcast like we're doing, you got to check out Podbean. You can see us on there, iconis.podbean.com. That's what we use. And if you need to have any kind of graphic work done for any project that you're doing, it's not too late to hit up the one and only
J Bird Digital Art.
Mr. Jason Reese, Jaybird Digital Arts. He'll hook you up worldwide. And you mentioned you hear about him on the Iconis podcast, and he will give you a discount on the work. Right. And a quick shout out, I almost forgot. We are a part of the Subculture Podcast Network. So check us out along with 4 other podcasts. We're okay being your second favorite podcast. We're good. Just make sure to like, subscribe, share, rate, and review, tune in every week. We're good. We got something going on for you. Now, before we jump into today's topic, Larry, I know I mentioned your Facebook page, but give us some background on a Facebook page. What made you start the Facebook Facebook group you got going on?
Well, at the time, I was managing a comic book store, and we were going into some of the older books that I had in the store, and I wanted to get out some information on some of the characters that people had never heard of when I was talking to them. People like the Shield,
right?
The original Blue Beetle.
Yes.
So I decided, you know what? Let's start educating people on the history and find some really cool characters to find out about.
I love it because I said I came across this page. It came up in my sponsored feeds or suggested feeds, and I'm like, oh, I'll join it. And then it was like, like finally, it's more than besides X-Men and Justice League and Avengers. It's way more than that. It's been like that for how many years? It's been way more than that.
We're hitting our 10-year mark.
Nice.
We're hitting our 10-year mark.
Wow. Congratulations.
Very
Congratulations.
nice.
10 years. So hey, the culture has been, he's been doing it for 10 years, but the culture's been around way longer than that. The rest of y'all just catching up. This is why we do these shows, and that's why that page is there.
Yep.
So on that, the icon is on the Iconist podcast.
Project
Pegasus.
Project Pegasus. Now you're going to look at that and say, okay, Barry, what hero is that? And I'm like, it's not a hero. And you're going to say, well, Barry, who is it? And it's not a who, it's a place. Because a lot of the things we talk about on this show, on Larry's page, everybody needs to live somewhere. Do you have a house? Do you have a house? If so, then our heroes have houses. Now, we know some of the famous locations because they're always associated with them. Batman has a Bat Cave, Wayne Manor, Tony Stark, the Avengers got the Avengers compound, got it. Justice League has got the satellite or one of their locations around, Satan's Tower, yada, yada, yada. But outside the main properties, there are other locations that are absolutely important to the culture that don't seem to get as much of a light as they should. They get a mention, it's a passing mark, and only people like us and those listening or who are about to be educated can go, there's that Easter egg. There's that Easter egg. So Project Pegasus made its debut in Marvel 2-in-1, issue number 42, which was the series that ran for 100 issues, and that was the Thing from the Fantastic Four, and he would have his team-ups. Marvel did a lot of these team-ups, so you had Marvel 2-in-1, who else had an ongoing team-up book?
Spider-Man, Marvel team-up.
Marvel team, right. Spider-Man, Marvel team-up, Super Villain team-up, right, which is another one. So they were doing all these team-ups, and this was great because it was seeing other characters that, you'll take a popular character. So this is pre-Wolverine, because Wolverine was not in, now he's in everything to team up with everybody. But beyond that, he was not. It was Spider-Man, it was a Thing. And then you had the villains kind of doing it too, which was led by Namor, Doctor Doom. And that's where a lot of their backstory comes from. So when people see their stories now, they're like, well, why is Namor teaming up with Doctor Doom? Let's time travel back in a bit. You go to your comic book store, you pull out some back issues, you add those to your collection, and you're more knowledgeable. Wow. Okay. So that was the beauty of it. So Larry was the one saying we should talk about places. I'm like, I agree. This makes sense. Rod was talking about that the other day. Like, we should talk about places. I'm like, yes. So we're going to talk about the Project Pegasus. So Project Pegasus, as I said, issue number 42, Marvel 2-1 with the Thing, and that's where you see Thing teaming up with Captain America, bringing back a character that appeared previously, who was Wundar. Once again, 70s, 80s, wacky time. Don't knock the name. Came about, and it was a organization that was put together by the government. Some people knew generally what they were doing, but not everybody knew how deep it went. Picture this is like Area 51. If you had to do something like that, everyone knows of Area 51. Nobody knows what Area 51 really does.
Well, let's give them the full name. So, Pegasus.
Yes.
Potential Energy Group, Alternate Sources, United States. So they're studying energy. So what are they going to do? They're going to grab some of these energy characters, like Solar.
Yeah.
And maybe Quasar.
Yes.
And try to figure out how their energy works.
Absolutely. Some people were villains that were in custody that were taken over there by the institution, and some were volunteers. So you had like Dazzler. So Dazzler volunteered to go in there so they can understand how her powers function, to find alternate energy sources and do that. I mean, pretty much we do that now. I mean, it's outside of comic books, they're looking at different forms of energy, because if they didn't, you wouldn't have solar energy, you wouldn't have like wind energy, radiation, nuclear radiation. So all these forms of energy, they're always looking for something that's different from fossil fuels. And the comic books gets kind of expanded on that even more. Now, how much is reality and what is over to that? I don't know. I like to think it's there. And once again, this is funded by the government. So that's why I had this whole Area 52 thing pop in my head, because like people Project Pegasus, it's like, oh yeah, it's buildings over here in these mountains where they stand outside of New York City. Okay. But no one knows fully what happens. And they're integrated with all the other things within Marvel, right? So they're integrated with NASA, they're integrated with Shield, they're integrated with other companies and all that. So there's a lot of boardroom antics are going on. There's a human resource element that's there. There's, maybe people kind of not doing what they should be doing because you always have someone that's there in the organization.
Yeah, the various jails in the Marvel comics.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Raft and oh boy.
Yep. and it starts off, because of them, we get later on the Vault, which was an official jail cell complex for villains, right? Just like DC has Blackgate prison, Marvel had the Vault. But before the Vault, it was Project Pegasus. Where are you putting in the job application? Right. And this was cool because in issue 42, opening panel, I thought it was a lot of action in that issue, right? You see the Thing come bashing through the wall and he's pissed off. So let's go half a second with the Thing. We're talking the Thing from the Ben Grimm, Fantastic Four. This was a solo run. Now, let's look back at some of the history. Ben Grimm was Fantastic Four. Ben Grimm, at the same time, was also loosely based character-wise off the creator, which was Jack the King Kirby. So Jack Kirby kind of put his, I guess, character, his persona into the Thing. When you ask Jack Kirby when he was alive, who do you see mostly that you connect to as a character? He says, I'm like the Thing. I based the Thing from the Fantastic Four off of my personality, my views. He's Jewish. He was, if you look at pictures of Jack Kirby, he's always, he smoked a stogie. He had his cigars. He was a short, stocky guy, right? He came up poor. He looked like he could, handle himself in a street fight too at the same time. So a lot of that perlays into the Thing. So when you read the Thing, be it with the Fantastic Four or the solo run, you see maybe it was dreaming not dreaming totally, but Jack Kirby starting off of saying, hey, this is why I am. This is the person I am. And things I would like to do. And the Thing is an accomplished Air Force pilot, United States Air Force pilot. Right? So even though he talks streetwise, he's smarter than he looks. And that's why I think a lot of people undersell that. So in this issue, why I'm bringing all this up, in issue number 42, the Thing shows up. Captain America is there. He's busting in because he's trying to save this guy who looks like a grown man, who goes by Wondar, but really has the mind of a 7-year-old in a grown man's body with energy powers. And he calls the Thing Uncle Benji. That's how he sees him. So the Thing, when he found out that he was being held there against his will, and they almost kind of experimenting on him, lost his temper. Now, keep in mind, before the Thing met Reed Richards, before he was with Fantastic Four, before he was a test pilot, he was part of a street gang called the Yancey Street Gang. His brother was a part of this gang, running the gang, leading the gang. He looked up to his brother, and then during a street fight with another gang, his brother was killed in front of him at the age of 8, where caused Ben to start cursing, running, grabbing a pipe, and then jumping into the fight himself, swinging. And with the police arriving finally to break this thing up, most people got away. Ben didn't. He was taken back with his parents. And I think his dad was an alcoholic. So he was with his, he was shipped off with his aunt and uncle at one point because one of his family members died. So he went with his aunt and uncle. Now, his uncle was more successful. His uncle was a doctor. His uncle got away from all that poverty and really clawed his way out from Yancey Street to be more successful. Because now, in between that, Ben became the leader at one point of the Yancey Street Gang. Left the Yancey Street Gang, joined, moved uptown. Because he moved uptown, his friends saw him as a sellout. He lost his standing with the Yancey Street Gang. They worked on him. He kind of came around. He went to school. He was able to maybe take his size, his energy, and do it on the football field. Got himself a scholarship, got himself into college, met Reed Richards, and pretty much, the rest is history, how it went. But during that time, his aunt, she passed away from cancer. His uncle met someone else, remarried, and she too was a positive influence on Ben, very much so. They connected very quickly, and that was his famous Aunt Petunia.
Yeah.
Ooh. Call that for half a second. So now I don't know, and that's the true question. I don't know. Maybe Larry, you know how much of how parallel that is, maybe with Jack Kirby's life. I don't know.
Very,
Oh, really?
actually.
Okay,
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
He put himself in art school.
right.
And other than that, pretty much street gang, got in trouble, got father dies from alcohol poisoning,
Right.
and so on. So yeah, a lot of Ben Grimm is yeah.
Okay.
Kirby.
Now, even I
Matter of
didn't know
fact,
that.
there's a really good issue of What If
Mhm.
that was what if the Fantastic Four was the Marvel bullpen
Yes, I remember
Oh,
that issue. Right.
and Jack was the Thing.
Right.
So
nice.
Right.
yeah. But now let's go a little quick onto Wondar though. So
Yeah.
you gotta go back a little bit for Wondar, not too much. Let me see. I think it was a Fantastic Four issue that introduced him,
Mm.
but basically his backstory starts out like Superman. He's an alien. His ship lands, but he's he's an adult, but he doesn't have the brain. He doesn't have the mental capacity
Capacity.
yet
Right.
of a grown adult. He's a 7-year-old. Then he ends up they hooking up with Ms. Marvel for a couple issues. We're talking Carol Danvers,
Yeah.
original. And that's when Project Pegasus kidnaps him.
Okay.
Okay. And the next time you see him is Marvel 2-in-1 42. With Benji breaking in to
Yeah.
save him and Cap trying to say, no, this is not what it looked like.
Yes.
And the best line in there actually is because, Ben's doing his famous, grouchy street level. And he's like, listen, I happen to know you're a test pilot. And you know a lot more about science than you let on.
That was the beautiful line. I thought that stuck out so much. And Ben Grimm's answer to that was, yeah, but I have an image to keep up. Like,
Squabbering time.
why if you hear Ben talk, right? You're like, oh, okay, he's just the muscle-bound guy, grouchy guy, blah, blah, blah. Then you look at it and you think, now, if you really pay attention to what Ben does, Ben piloted the Fantastic Four rocket. He's their pilot. First and foremost, he was in the United States Air Force. He's flown Black Op missions at the request of Nick Fury. Okay. So if you're he's physically fit. Prior to being the Thing, he's physically fit. He's a football player. Mm-hmm. He's physically fit. He knows how to scrap because he was part of a street gang and he held that down and became the leader of that street gang. Right. His initiation was kind of breaking in and stealing stuff from a pawn shop, and he ended up stealing Star David, and to get into that gang. So let's go through. So he's got all that training. So now take that and put a military United States Air Force training behind that. So that's weapons training. That's Air Force. Learns how to fly. He's not a dumb man, even though he's like, you bums all the time. You bums, clobbering time. Oh, okay, that's what he says. But you put him behind a plane, he's good to go. Because in that issue, at one point, Wondar kind of gets drained from some of his energy, and it kind of forms because there's a plot. The cosmic cube, that same cosmic cube that the Red Skull is always trying to get. And for our friends that watched only the movies, even picture the Tesseract. Okay, that's where it kind of comes down to. Ben Grimm walks into a hangar with Steve Rogers, both of them. I mean, Captain America. Walk into him like, oh, here's a new experimental plane. Yeah. Well, they're doing the checklist. No, I'm leaving now. Yeah, but sir, we haven't done the checklist. Captain America turns around and looks at the rest of the crew going, he knows more about this plane that was made by Stark International than you guys do. Don't worry about it. If we're going, we're going. And within minutes, Ben's like, click, 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 click. Okay, we're going. He flies off in this experimental plane. How smart do you have to be to fly a plane you've never flown before? Right? And Tony Stark likes to be as smart as possible, putting all these extra gadgets in it, and he flew it without a problem.
Right.
All
But
right.
of course, he's used to read fly. So
I
yeah,
mean, bottom line is, if you can fly Reed Richards stuff, you can fly. It's
Tony's, Tony's.
Tony
No,
Stark,
not Tony.
Tony
Just
Stark stuff.
a regular one, a regular.
Yeah, but this one was made by Tony Stark, so it's Tony Stark,
Oh,
Reed Richards, apples, oranges, potato, whatever.
got it.
He's going to do it. So this is why I like this whole issue, but this is where it brings in Project Pegasus and what they're trying to do, and then they give a whole breakdown. So I think it was in the Deluxe Marvel Universe handbook, issue number 10, that you can get into some of those things. So if you really want to see what we're talking about, when they give a breakdown of who's there, they give a picture, of the figureheads, the main people that were there. There's a lot more people than that, too many to cover. But it was a 2-issue spread, 2-page spread in that issue. So page 1 has all that information, and page 2 a little bit more, and then it gives a breakdown, like an actual architectural breakdown of what it looks like. And this is what I loved about the Marvel Universe. It's like they got artists to say, okay, it goes with that draftsman part of me, the architect part of me, and say, here's a building. This is what it's got to do. All right. This floor is on this floor. This floor is connected to this floor. Building is connected to this building, blah, 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 blah. And you can visualize it. Like if the MCU said, hey, we wanted to build this building, all they got to do is like, here's a blueprint. Who's their blueprint? We already know. And if you stick with that and recreate that, fans will know, oh, you're on, level E. Oh, we know what's on level E. We're on level B. We know what's on level B. We know how you have to connect from one to the other. This is why I say it's amazing, because people get caught up with, okay, Shield, got it, no problem.
Right.
First and foremost, DC Universe, Star Labs, okay, we know how that plays around in some of the other locations. But things like this, we never covered. So I can't even remember. I've got to look this up. When was that first issue? When did issue 42 come out? What was the first? Do we have a date appearance of that?
8? That came out in August. We got a year.
Oh, we'll figure it out.
I'll figure it out. Give me.
Yeah.
1978.
Yeah.
So
August 1978. August 1978.
August of 1978 is when that issue came out. So that's pretty much when they made their first appearance, somewhat of getting themselves in there. Oh, okay. Here we are in 2024. Do the math, people. This has been around a long time, and this is why these shows do so well, because there's such a rich history behind it. So that's me speaking on that. Larry, what's your whole take on having these locations, and do you want to see more of these locations pop up? I know we're going to cover them, but would you want to see this show up in a cartoon, a TV show, a live action movie?
Heck yeah. That's one of the things I loved about like Hulk and Agents of Smash and Avengers Assembled, because you actually got to see these in the cartoon versions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah,
I think it's important.
Yeah. Now, as far as the blueprint thing, that I loved when they put blueprint issues out in the back pages, because I'm still like, when I win the lottery, I'm building the X-Mansion.
Touché, sir. Touché.
I've never heard anybody say that, but it's the most common sense statement out of anyone's mouth. If I make money, I want the X-Mansion. I want Xavier's. That makes sense. Now, before we go any further, Larry, are we talking just the top, or are we actually going to start looking into sub-levels and training rooms and particular pathway to the Blackbird and so forth? Just out of curiosity, is that within the budget?
If I have enough money for the hangar, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I am going to have the gym downstairs be the danger room.
Danger room. Okay, cool. do we at least get maybe a smaller version of Cerebral room, if anything? But we'll leave that for you. And when you do, don't forget to give us a call. Thanks, man. You're the best, Larry. You're the best. Just saying. Yeah.
All right.
See, that's next level. That's why I like James Bond movies, the old James Bond movies, because the villains had the best hideouts.
Yeah, 100%.
Like Oh, it's all about Octopussy where they had that hideout out in the water and it just came above the sea kind of thing and then went underwater again. Okay, Larry, I'm with you because you mentioned X Mansion, and I'm thinking is like your media room is going to be big.
Oh
yeah, that'd be funny. That'd be funny.
Let's say for the female viewers that are listening or watching, we have to understand something about men. Men love caves. This is why Batman has a cave. This is why Superman has a Fortress of Solitude. It's removed. It's almost like a cave. This is why the X-Mansion has sub-levels. Men love caves. We don't care if the house is 1 story above ground, but we want it 5 stories below. Parking, entertainment, gym, whatever. And if you turn around and laugh, let's digress for half a second and look at real life. If you watch the first Iron Man movie with
Robert Downey,
Robert Downey Jr. His mansion from the outside is a real location. It's a real house that half hanging over the cliff. And it's owned by a husband and wife couple that you might have heard of, depending on how you feel about music. Swiss Beats and his wife, Alicia Keys. That's who owns that house right now, and they live into it. They go home, that's their mailing address. That is their house. Okay.
Flag on the play. 10-yard penalty.
Bro.
10-yard penalty. The one that got blown up at the end when he said, "Come find my house" off the cliff.
Yeah. Google it. Swiss Beats and Alicia Keys. That's their house.
Continue.
That's their honestly, house. If you go online, they're sitting there. There's a video of them walking through the house and they're like, yeah, we got the Iron Man house. And it's like, ha, 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 ha. And you look, you're like, holy crap, they really do got the Iron Man house. That's where it was filmed.
Well, I know it's someone's house. Sorry, people. I'm sidestepping right now. I know it's someone's house. Like we all know, even like the X Mansion. It's up here in somewhere in Ontario on this side. The house, the external of it is. So I know it's someone's house. I just thought it was someone, let's say, hey, we're going to pay you a little money. Can we borrow your house for a while? We just need it for a couple of months for a couple of shoots. Sure, no problem. Go ahead, Marvel. Now I realize it's actually Swiss Beats' house.
It's me, snitches.
Oh my gosh.
So,
all right. Sorry, retracting. I'm done. I'm quiet. Okay. I'll close my camera right now. Bye, everybody. I'm out. What the hell?
So this is what the beauty of this is. So to your point, Larry, anytime they put I love architecture. Like me and Ron, we did a drafting course way back when we were in high school, and I love doing this stuff and reading on it. So when they put these out, the blueprints, the cutaways in the comics, magazines, regardless of who it is, the walkthroughs, those are the issues that I buy the most. I'll make sure I always have a copy of those, and if they update it, I want to know. So. And this is really speaks to me. So, I mean, if you're looking at the Project Pegasus from the outside, from what the public sees, right? They see, for example, a radio observatory. And then you see there's 2 other buildings. This is what I'm talking above ground. There's administrative buildings, okay? Then in the middle, there's a silo that's there, and it's an optical observatory. And then off, there's other 2 ones, and they're called supply domes. That's all it is. And it's got a fence, a wall around it. Okay, very simple. That's above ground. But below ground, there is 5 levels below ground connected by what they call the loop. It's like their own transportation system that kind of spirals down and up to get to the different levels. It looks almost like a DNA molecule ram that they put together. So you got the silo in the middle, and then, level A is like solar. I'm looking here at my notes. So A level, solar power research, right? And you got the zoom level, blah blah blah. B level is communications, and then you got the gravitic research. C level, main level is security, which we're going to come back to, right? And then there's other side spheres. It was a new Oshkosh living module, nuclear waste research, the compound human research, which a lot of stuff happens on. And it goes, let's see here. D level is administration. E level is analyst, computer center. F level is maintenance and stores. G level is life support, environmental control. All right. They even have a spot in here that says Miami Beach living module. I'm in Miami, Trick. Okay. H level is Fast Breeder Reactor Project Power Source. And then it shows, okay, the pit, nuclear waste disposal. So these are all in here with even showing more than that. Escape tubes, like rocket escape tubes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And it's funded by the US government. So because of that, they have their ties in with other government facilities, as I mentioned before, which is like, at the time it was SHIELD, Stark International, Stain International. At one point was working with them. Their rival was Roxanne Oil.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole different thing altogether.
But very important to the storyline.
Yes. And I think that they are a little bit underlined. I would love to see them doing more. We see them pop up Roxanne Oil I'm talking about. You hear more about them with in the beginning of Alpha Flight, with especially Guardians history or Vindicator at the time.
Right. And the Serpent Crown.
Yes, and the Serpent Crown, which is like, the Serpent Society that comes in. So they bad guys have their stuff too, but so do the good guys. I think that this here is so important. So let's break down some of maybe the main people that they had at the time, be it as administrators, heads of security, and all that. You got a list there, Larry, of some of these people?
Let's see. I'm just going to go through a few of the people that have made appearances in that. So we've got Guardsmen.
Yes.
We've got, as I said, Quasar.
Yep.
Darkhawk later on.
Yeah.
In this particular storyline with Wandar. Now, one of the things about Wandar is he starts out as one thing and ends up as something else. So do a couple other characters. But you got Thundra shows up.
Yeah.
The Grapplers. Claw.
Yeah. Master of Sound, which is very important to the Black Panther storyline.
Yep. Sitwell, Agent Sitwell.
Yes.
Let's see who else. There's a character and starts out as Black Sun, becomes the Nth Man, and I thought now he's got a different name. Before he died, he died recently, I think. So he's been three things throughout this whole thing, and he ties in with Squadron Supreme, who actually ended up living at Project Pegasus for a while.
That's right. So, and then there's other people that have made the appearance from early on. So we're going to double back, and I know we're just
Giant Man.
Man.
This is the story where Bill Foster changes from Black Goliath, because every black hero's got to be black something, for some reason, to Giant Man.
Very important, and that's like in between. I think like around the time he's near the tail end of the Champions, the original run, when it was Black Widow, Iceman, Angel, Ghost Rider, Achilles. There we go. He shows up near the end, and I thought that should have gone further. So when you go back to some of the people that made appearances, non-superpowered people, right? You got Dr. Myron Wilburn. So Dr. Myron Wilburn was the administrative director. His first appearance is in Marvel 2-in-1, issue number 53.
Yep.
And then you got Dr. Margaret Mayfair, director of marketing, first appearance, Marvel 2-in-1, 57. So Marvel 2-in-1 had a lot to do with this location coming up first and foremost. Dr. Anson Harkov, he's the director of research. He showed up in Marvel 2-in-1 in number 57. Quasar, as you mentioned, his first appearance was Wendell Vaughn, formerly security officer and active in Marvel 2-in-1 in issue number 53. So we're going way back with these characters. Guardsman, who you mentioned. So the first Guardsman, from what I'm seeing here, was Michael O'Brien, former head of security. He was active in Avengers number 236. But he gets the armor, and we can go more into that. Then, of course, they show the standard uniform, which was blue with darker blue, like light blue kind of jumpsuit with dark blue gloves, dark blue boots, and it formed like a V pattern in dark blue exposed. And that was just their normal, any person working there, that was their attire if you're working below deck, so to speak. Then there was Dr. Henry Sorrell, who was head of the compound And he made his appearance in Marvel 2-in-1 issue number 55. So all around the 50s, they're all kind of popping up real quick. And then the last one I have here is Dr. Jenny O'Connell, psychiatrist, first appearance in Marvel 2-in-1 issue number 53. So pretty much in 53, a lot of them showed up, followed in issue 55, and then so forth. Now, the guardsmen, as I said, really, Michael O'Brien. So Michael O'Brien, he was a head of security at one point. And because he was head of security, he got a lesser version of the Iron Man armor. And that was to help kind of keep things secure because they had villains down below that were studying their powers. They had other heroes that volunteered, but really they had villains on board. I mean, there was Solar, there was Rhino, the list goes on. Yeah. Now, I don't know why Rhino would be there for them to study. That's what I found weird because he doesn't have any energy powers, but Rhino was one of them for some reason. Let's see here, Project Pegasus. Yeah, they had I will find more. I know there was here we go. So Quasar, right? Quasar was there for like 7 years as a head of security. I'm trying to see. Sorry, going through so many notes. But as I said, that's one that stood out for me was Rhino. Like I'm like, why would Rhino be there?
Plus, I think they might have been checking the bond on his outfit.
Yeah, makes sense. Because I think you're right. They were checking the bond on his outfit because it was kind of grafted to his skin, but it wasn't really more of an energy thing. But hey, research is research. And a lot of that research parlays into maybe storylines I think they could have happened to present day. Like how to contain these heroes or villains that have energy powers. It can go into a whole conspiracy theory. And that's what I would love to see more of. It's like, we know this is the birthplace of the Vault. The Vault is to contain supervillains with various powers, regardless of what those powers are. If it's just plain super strength you have or energy manipulation powers, how to control that. Now, of course, you read what happens in X-Men, and they got those collars that kind of take away their powers. Hey, all right, there's one connects to the other.
Yep.
And that's what I'd like to see more. So I know you had some notes there on the Guardsman, Michael O'Brien, Larry. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this character. And in the meantime, Rod, what did you think of Project Pegasus when you were looking into it?
Well, I mean, you're looking at it and you're realizing what's this, we know it's the base off of the Marvel Universe. Anybody who doesn't know, if you realize where I've ever heard it, again, from Captain Marvel, at least from the movie, if you want to at least have some kind of realism, it's the early stages. So I like knowing that what we know now is, the fullness of it. And I like that they made that kind of name drop and kind of started off with Project Pegasus, not only from the beginning of, was it the beginning of Iron Man? No, that's right, Avengers. Yes. when it collapsed, it was there. That's the first time we heard it. And then later on, they did a prequel back with Captain Marvel, at least showing that it was started back then. So we have small little niches and cuts into the MC universe and giving those who may not know and realize, okay, we're going to build off of that. So realizing that is basically an organization that is into the research of energy and finding how to what's the best way of saying what is energy, how we can use it, how can we manipulate it and use it for the best ability for the planet of Earth. Yes. I like that they thought of something. You said in the beginning, it's interesting. You have all these different stuff, but then you realizing what would you do with it? So it's great that Marvel actually had some type of made sure they made an IP that you can make another place that you could connect to people, not only about the city and the X Mansion, the Baxter Building, but what happens with you have all these individuals with superpowers. What if somebody wanted to study them? Because in reality, if you think about it, DC has Star Labs. This is the Marvel version of Star Lab. You can look at it from that standpoint. Because there's nothing that I can think of.
Well, okay, so is it the Marvel version of Star Labs? Sorry, is DC is this the Marvel version of Star Labs, or is it more the Marvel version of Project Catamus?
That's a good
Well,
question.
that is a very good question because 'cause if the researching aspect of it, it'll be more towards Star Labs. Catamus
Right,
was more for creating and just Catamus. We know Catamus as being it's a nice making friends at Catamus, but in the back end it was just pure evil, hevel. Um,
uh-huh.
Pegasus wasn't really like an evil type of organization. You know what I mean? You brought up a
Right.
good point in thinking about cannabis, but I didn't even think of a cannabis in that end. I was thinking
Yeah,
more of the
because
research aspects of it. But you're right.
well, and here's my thing, because Project Catamus had its own security officers, right?
Well,
They had the
yeah,
Guardian, right? He ran
right.
around blue with a gold shield. Guardian, he was the head of security. Star Labs never really had a head of security. Star Labs is not one location. As you see,
Yeah.
it starts off as one, and then they seem to have like satellite offices in different cities, depending which version of the DCU you're looking at. Project Catamus always seemed to be like one main location. Now, depending who was writing it, they wrote it if they were a little bit more lean towards good, a lean a little bit towards evil, right? So once again, it's not really been 100% defined, and maybe in my mind, but they did have, and I believe Cannabis came way after Project Pegasus, like creation wise. I'm talking, in the comic
Oh
books,
yeah, no, no,
right?
I'm sure of it. I'm
Mhm.
sure
So
of it.
did
You
they
can
get
we can
influenced? Did someone at DC look over the fence and go, "What are they doing over there?"
Clinical Wilson.
Oh,
Heidi ho, neighbor. Heidi ho, neighbor.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh,
um,
So Wilson,
well, that's now you're just that's another part conversation we could maybe bring up before the end of the show, if not. But I never really thought of Project Pegasus to be
Project Catamus. Hmm? Because now let's go back. Let's stay on target. We can come back. We can come back to this.
no.
So
Let's stay on target. Let's stay on target.
right, right. So I'm not. I'm first person to go off target. In issue 42, the thing comes busting through with his
Right,
fist, and the guy turns around and says, "Who's punching through 6 inches of titanium
and you
steel?"
steal.
Like it's nothing. That's the first line, and this is why I like old school Marvel. I find more the new stuff today that you open the first page, they're talking. Page 2, they're talking. Page 3, they're talking. Page 4, it might be a throwdown. Some actions that happen. Old school Marvel, page 1, without any backstory. Because if you read issue number 41 of Marvel 2-in-1, it's the Thing and Brother Voodoo, right? It's
right.
like finishing off a storyline with Black Panther. Okay. And then automatically issue 42, all you do is you open the page and the Thing is punching through a wall. Two,
Right.
security guards are there. They're telling you how much and how thick this is, what's going on. They don't know. By the time you turn to page 2, Captain America is there. It's like, what are you doing?
Right.
Yeah.
But you see, in that standpoint, if you look at the back of it, because I have it open just to
Yeah.
get that visual, it's looking like a very large research, and research warehouse. It's very, very large, so everybody can get a visual. It's like it honestly makes you feel like it's like 2 or 3 airplane hangars combined. Like it's really big and high and deep, and it's like, Jack Kirby making great equipment that is so big and like saying, I don't know where the hell I'm storing this. Like, if anybody had to move this, we basically had to build it from scratch. We're building whatever equipment right here. Bring the parts. Like, we're not building someplace and bringing it here. It got built here, right here. So large stuff. But the visual to it makes me feel of some type of Star Lab in another section. It's a place for equipment, experimenting stuff along that line. Cannabis to me was more manipulative. You see the genome, but maybe because my mind is thinking Young Justice, and I got the more modern touch to it scenario.
Right.
That was more hidden stuff. More, we're doing some manipulation. Cannabis is AK Amanda, so we know who she is, what she's all about. So she's not there trying to, in her view, let me stand back.
Mhm.
In her view, she
Mhm.
feels she's doing something for the greater good of mankind. Yes.
Mm.
Maybe her tax is a little bit hard. Maybe her tax is like saying, I will just like, it was for the greater good of United States of America. You just shoot somebody else. Yeah, I said the Suicide Squad. Don't worry about it. Keep moving.
Yeah.
Keep moving.
Yeah, but you got okay with Cadmus though. You got two things going on because you've got the fact that Lex Luthor is funding it,
Well,
Yes.
this is
but you've got the former newsboys
Huh?
that were the 1940 Guardians sidekicks. You know, this cop was protecting
Yes.
that are
Yes.
now the doctors running Cadmus and cloning people, including themselves and the original Guardian. Because the Guardian at Cadmus is a clone of the original Guardian.
Yep.
He's
Right.
also Roy Harper's uncle, but that's a
We'll
totally
get
different
into,
story.
the DNA later with that. We'll get into
That's
the
a
DNA
totally
with that
different
later.
story. But so
You see
you've
the
got
guys you're
good guys, you've got good
Yeah.
guys trying to run the place, but you're backed by Luthor.
But you see, I don't know if I would call. See, that's where I'm like, to me, it's a slippery slope. It's back. I think in the reverse. It's backed by evildoers, and you just have a front man, or you have an individual, the Guardian. But again, you can just manipulate, make him feel like, yeah, this is a good compound. What you're doing here is saving the world and helping out American people. Great, I'm doing my part. Sign me up. Not really, I'm behind it. Don't let Guardian know that we do evil stuff around here. Don't let him know. But whatever you do, don't let Guardian know. He'll freak out. He just gets, just don't let him know.
But those boys that were the Newsboy Legion, basically,
Huh? Right.
they were good guys.
Right. I can see that, but that's what I'm like saying. But they're the worker bees. Do what you got to do. Don't
Lex
don't
is
worry
a
about.
smooth talker.
Well,
You know?
you don't know what Rex is doing upstairs. The executive. It's above my pay grade kind of conversation. I don't know what they're doing upstairs. We still get lunch on Fridays, right? Okay, cool. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
But
with Project Pegasus, it seems that the good guys are running the place, but you have some evil doctors.
Yes, exactly. They have their own agenda. So, and here's and Rod, you made a very good point there, right? You made the whole thing. So you said Project Catamus, you said Amanda Waller. So keep in mind now, Amanda Waller was running Blackgate Prison. That's where she ran out the Suicide Squad, right? So
Yeah.
she was using Project Catamus to kind of get a better understanding of heroes. And this is what the government in DC universe was doing, using that Project Catamus to understand how the heroes and villains function so they can come up with weapons and deterrents if they got out of line.
Right.
And
Yes,
that's
yes,
how they
yes.
kind of did it. Okay. And then Amanda Waller was okay, but now let's go back for half a second. Project Pegasus was doing pretty much the same thing.
The same thing.
Backed by the government, not backed by,
Once you look from that standpoint, yeah.
Right. But then it births into the vault. It's almost like DC kind of went, as you put it, hey neighbor, what's happening there?
Howdy ho, neighbor.
Howdy ho, neighbor. So now, if the government, that's good, right? Captain America, super soldier, right? He's Captain America. We know he's, and there's storylines around that he is still a U.S. official. In the eyes of the government, he's still a soldier that reports to them. In storylines, he's worked with Nick Fury in the comic book, in the movies. That's it. It's salute Captain America. Got it. Underneath there, Steve Rogers still dog tags soldier, super soldier.
Yeah.
Working with the government. The government does not control majority of the heroes that are out there. I'm talking Marvel strictly, right? Don't control the heroes that are out there. If you are a government official, normal person, you cut yourself, it takes you 7 days for the scab to come over and stop. And okay, you don't have a healing factor. You don't have super strength. You don't have invulnerability. And more of these super powered people are popping up where you live, where you govern. As a government, you first are saying, what do we got to do? First, we need to understand them.
Right.
And then we need to be able to control and contain them just in case. Now, you sell that, everyone's going to say, oh, yeah, makes sense. And then you can have someone in the back of the room pulling the Cobra Commander going, yeah, but what if I can just use it to further my agenda? And it takes just one person to say, yeah,
there's always going to be one. There's always going to be one. So I will agree. I fully understand. There will always be at least a Cobra Commander, a Starscream, someone in the background who has their own agenda to take over leadership and say, I think I could do it better than you. I understand.
It's like, you want to contain. I want to rule. So there's where I think, and this is my own opinion, that I would love to see Project Pegasus show more of their inner workings. I would love to see. That goes into my whole thing of world building. That goes into all of that. Larry, I know you read the Project Pegasus saga, right? I admit, I did not read the Project Pegasus saga. Do they cover more of their inner workings within that saga and how they cover certain things? No.
Not a lot. Not a
lot.
No, they're dealing with their various break-ins.
Right.
I mean, you start with a kidnapping with Wandar twice because he gets kidnapped by the bad guy, and that's why Cap and the Thing have to fly off in the aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have 7 issues before you even talk about Project Pegasus again. Then you're at a card game with Wendell Vaughn, Quasar, and Ben. All right, Wendell's being head of security, and Ben is being assigned to security temporarily to help out because they're having these break-ins. And that's what you're dealing with through most of it. Break-ins and people like changing, like Dr. Lightner, formerly Black Sun. Okay, he got cured by Thor.
Yes.
Basically. He ends up getting infused with energy, becomes the Nth Man. This basically destroys the universe that the Squadron Supreme comes from later. Yeah. So
many ties.
Yeah, no. He becomes something else. He becomes the Sorcerer Supreme of their universe.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's what I mean. Like, it's so many ties to this location.
Yeah.
What happened.
And then after you finish the Project Pegasus saga, which is the Nth Man, the creation of the Nth Man, which is just this big black void, white void, I should say. Big white void is what he looks like. When that finishes, and by the way, this is also where Wandar becomes the Aquarian.
Great.
And his powers change from manipulating energy to basically anything energy related, he shuts down. Including superpowers.
Man.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
So that's where you get the Aquarian. So Project Pegasus like transforms people. But then you don't see it for like several issues, and then it pops up again in both Iron Man and Fantastic Four.
Which I thought they would show up earlier, right? Seeing that it had the link to the thing.
Yeah.
So I thought for sure.
And this is where we get into the fact that it's like, you've got this great place for storylines to come out of, and you don't use it.
Now, that's my frustration.
There you go. Don't get him started, Larry. You got him started.
That's my frustration.
I wanted to.
That's my frustration. That you make such a wealth of place with. Okay, you've detailed each and every single floor. You've got all the heads. You've got all the departments. You make it right there. You start a storyline that's action-packed from issue number 1, 42, page 1. It's going in there, and there's no. And that's why I think they focus maybe somewhat too much on the characters. We got to focus more on the place. Sometimes, the Batcave is the Batcave. Nothing happens in the Batcave unless Batman is in the Batcave. If Quasar is gone doing a mission with the Avengers, or he's in outer space, things are still happening because people are punching in every day, Monday to Friday, click, 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 doing their 8-hour shift at Project Pegasus, be it above ground, below ground. So storylines are constantly moving. Villains are being constantly shipped there, shipped out. I want to know more of the research. When they did the research and made the Cosmic Cube or re-energized the Cosmic Cube there, how did it just stop? You have some. So the the brain's exploding. You had the Soviet super soldiers. They had their whole run. We know that they're making their own army over there. The Soviet Union is making their own army in there. Good or bad, they want to control it. They want to get more of a control of the heroes or villains that are popping up on their soil. We know through multiple issues, they always send spies over during the Cold War era, right? There was a spy when Hulk was created, the Abomination. So they're sending spies all the time over. How come I'm not
Black
seeing
Widow
something
was one.
similar? Pardon me?
Black Widow was one.
Black Widow, yeah, Black Widow was one, exactly. But how come I'm not seeing more spies trying to get into Project Pegasus? And why am I not seeing a version of Project Pegasus showing up in the Soviet Union, one showing up in Germany, all the other superpowers? Because the heroes, villains, they just look at them as weapons of mass destruction. This started the whole Civil War storyline. Project Pegasus should have been the front and foremost place, in my opinion, in Civil War, the first one, to say, hey, because the government should come in and say, wait a minute, we have someone that can lift 100 tons. We've got someone that can fly to this, to the moon back. Multiple people fly to the moon back and forth, teleport, shift reality. Right? Like if you look at the scope of the powers, be it good or bad, Magneto controls magnetism. He can draw the iron out of the air and make objects just with concentration. And Project Pegasus is not working towards that. I know Roxanne Oil. We're an oil company, but below ground, it's something. Yeah, it's something different. And we know they're shifty. That's a whole, Deathlock storyline. But why is Project Pegasus not doing more? You set them up with people, you set them up with a guardsman armor, you set them up as a location, and then it's just once in a blue moon when they're writing it's, oh, did anyone mention Project Pegasus for the past 10 years? No. Oh, we got to mention it in an issue. Just, all right, card games happening with a guardsman. Okay, we're good. All right, let's move on. No. Right. I want to see how they deal with other superpowers, other companies that are trying to do the same thing. You got Burger King, you got McDonald's, right? Like they probably have their own level of security looking at what kind of burger you're doing. What kind of burger are you doing? What are you buying? What are you buying? Are you making coffee? Oh, we doing breakfast sandwiches. Like it's, you know what I mean? It's the hamburger wars. This is energy wars dealing within the Marvel Universe superpowers. We know we focus a lot on North America, but there's super villains and powers all over. And listen, I think it would be awesome to take some of them that have kindly disappeared, but bring them back in a good storyline, not a cheesy storyline. The X-Men at the X-Mansion, it's always something that's going to happen. Above ground or below ground. I want to see that more at Project Pegasus.
Great, Barry. You've come up with the next crossover event, Energy Wars.
It's true, though, right?
But it is. It is. I just sometimes feel, we've had the discussion in regards to writing and plots that back then they just didn't feel it was worthy to do that. They probably felt that no one would want to know the inner workings of the organization along that line. Just talk about it. Hey, something's there. Give them a layout, give them a blueprint, and call it a day. Nowadays, I believe that discussions about that, giving people better insight, like saying, listen, if we're going to make this world as realistic as possible, these are questions someone has to be asking. So we answered it back in the days in the 70s, and we didn't touch about it no more. Okay, this is 2023 now. 2024 is just around the corner. Sorry, it's 24 right now. So let's go. Let's talk about it and make that a reality, because I agree with you. And I really agree that type of content can be explored. People will actually be interested in that and basically give you the opportunity to say, okay, if you start thinking about it and giving little bullet points about particular characters, clearly you're now going to open up a door where you can easily connect the dots from other IPs back to the Pegasus Project storyline and give it a little bit more depth. Like you said, in the movie, they did it just like, and just call it a day. No. We're going to have to go up closer, go up for a layup, go up instead of just shooting from the outside. Let's go in the paint. Let's go in. Let's talk about it and get more in depth in it. Because to me, it does make sense. It can work.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. Everyone knows about S.H.I.E.L.D. in the MCU, right? They loosely mention damage control in Spider-Man universe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Ms. Marvel.
Which is Marvel, exactly, right?
Right.
How are we not getting Project Pegasus more? All right, and here's my theory. We're the Avengers, right? Okay. Turn around, we do what we got to do. We fight Thanos, we win, we get the glove, we got all the Infinity Stones, gems, and all that. Are you going to, as the government, and think about that logically, is the government going to let all those stones stay at the Avengers compound? No, because they're not Avengers funded. Well, somewhat loosely, because in the MCU, they kind of took the ultimate storyline that Mark Miller kind of put together, right? So it's a blending of the two, but still, they're not full out. They're superheroes. Okay, they have other people there at the base, but these are all energy-based weapons. So by rights, in my mind, Shield should have said, "Hey, thanks, Avengers, for doing what you got to do. We're going to take all these artifacts." Now, should they stay at Shield? No, they shouldn't stay at Shield, because Shield is more of a spy organization, military, whatever it is. They're going to give it to someone who's going to research it, which is a division. I'm cool with it. It's a division of Shield, which is Project Pegasus. Here's the Tesseract, and here's the Infinity Stones. Right?
That's the part I was going to bring up. But yeah, you're right. Because they did that.
Go ahead, man.
But that's the part I was going to say. Well, you're saying, and I was thinking, like, that's literally, like I said earlier, that the last time in the timeline, last time they brought up about the Project Pegasus is when it collapsed. When in the first Avengers, when Loki and Hawk was breaking out with the Tesseract, that was it. It should be, so technically I can probably understand maybe why we don't hear about it, is because it was burnt down, broken down, fell apart, caved in. It's rubble. Someone should be building another one. Someone should be,
and that's fine for the movies, but the problem is that hasn't happened in the comics.
True.
So in the comics, they really, like you said, they don't talk about it, but it's still the building's still there.
Yeah, right? So it's the nuclear reactor.
Okay, so physically, there's still an address. Someone can initially knock on the door, swipe their access card, and hopefully go downstairs a couple of sub-levels, go to the cafeteria room, get a sandwich, and start doing work. Okay.
Yeah. And they could even cause the nuclear reactor to go into meltdown.
We won't get there yet, Larry. We'll hold on. Ladies and gentlemen, the actions of Larry R. is going a little bit over the clip back. Let's not hit those code numbers yet, Larry. Let's not give them the codes. Let's not give them the code numbers.
Oh, but Larry's onto a point, right? In the comic books, it's still there. It's still active. That's the MCU's version of it, is burn it down. Okay, everything's gone. It's still there. The guardsmen are still there. It has directors are still there. Everyone is still there in their roles, and they just don't focus it. Now, that being said, there's a whole storyline where
we're ready for that.
The Thing walked in there, punched through the wall, and broke it down, and he broke some stuff, and he hit some people. Do you think there was any repercussions for that? Not in the comic books. Now, the smart thing would be to say, it's like, hey, man, the Thing just broke this wall. He broke all this equipment. The Thing's best friend is Reed Richards, right? Sometimes you got to take the hit to get the hit, because all it needs is someone to go over there to the Baxter building and say, hey, Reed, yeah, so your boy.
You're about to say, you know what your boy did?
You know what your boy did? He broke up all this equipment, and then Reed's going to sit there. And what's the first thing Reed always does? Reed feels guilty that he's not
100%.
able to cure Ben. And that plays on the emotional point with it. And as his best friend, Reed's not going to go to his best friend going, man, you suck. Reed's going to go, okay, Ben lost his temper. Don't worry about it. How can I help? Well, Reed, what are you working on that you might be able to let us have? So let's say we forget this incident.
Yeah.
Like Gilbert Gottfried in Beverly Hills Cop. Sir, if you give me something in this hand, will it make you forget what's in this hand? If I give you something, will you forget these tickets?
Yeah, but you also gotta understand, at that time, Reed was like one of the richest people in Marvel Comics with all his patents.
True.
Yes. That's how they get. So Reed can either pay, or I'm sure as a government official, let's be real, they don't want the money. The money's not the issue. They just want to use that as a hook to kind of say, hey, Reed, come on board with us for a week.
Yeah,
A week.
we want your
This is
intellect.
Reed Richards. All we need is a maximum of a week of your time to help us with this research project that will put
Right.
us 10, 20 years ahead of ourselves.
Right.
And let's just call it even.
Right. Because you know,
And Reed being Reed,
right.
he would do it.
Yeah, Reed will do it. But you know, originally, prior to Ben breaking down the wall, Reed Richard, Dr. Richard, we need your help. Nah, I got no time for you. Nah, I got no time for you. Nah, I got no time for you. Like you said, his guilty conscience will come in. All right, what do you want? What are you working on? Listen, the point is, if they're smart, they will say, we have nothing. Give us something. Because if you come with something to him, right? They'll come to something to him, be like, oh, okay. Here's the answer. Turns into like how, if we're gonna go to the MCU, how Tony Stark was smart enough after having a drunken spur with the girl for oh come on. When he woke up the next morning with the answer on the back of the napkin, how to right? You know, he helped her out.
Yeah.
He could have done something more. He said that I don't remember doing that. Did I do that? Oh, probably when I woke up, here's the answer. So that's small beans to him.
Yes.
She came to him with a problem that's big for her. He's like, still in the drunken stirrup, you know, hiccuping after all the alcohol he had.
Yeah.
And he still figured out for her. My suggestion would be, Reed, we got you in the hook. Reed, give us something. Give us something. Because whatever we're going to tell you, it's going to be so small potatoes to you that it's going to take you half an hour. And we want you for a week. So I need something out of your head that will last, that will confuse you. Bring it here, Mr. Richard. Bring it here, Mr. Richard. And that's it. Then you win. Win-win.
Right.
Yeah.
Chicken the comic book. This is a crossover. Sorry, go on, Larry.
Here's another one just to make things even worse. Nitro is being studied by Project Pegasus. What started off the Civil War?
Nitro with the New Warriors. Yeah. The New Warriors had a reality show at this point, and they're trying to capture Nitro.
Which means Nitro escaped?
Yes, Nitro escaped, and he was in Wisconsin, I think it was.
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
And the house he was at was across the street from an elementary school.
Yep.
And Speedball with Night Thrasher, but Speedball was the one going in. It was a reality show, and Nitro does what Nitro does. Oh geez, I'm about to be attacked. Explode! And
Excelsior!
Yeah, it took out the elementary school, which started the Civil War. And that's why Speedball went with Dark Ball or whatever it was, I think, at one point, and he had spikes on his costume because he felt extremely good.
Penance.
Thank you. Penance.
Yes.
But doesn't this mean that
Nitro
Project Pegasus is partially responsible for Civil War?
Yep. And how come they weren't hunting down their escapee? If you escape a prison, guards from the prison are hunting you down along with local police, right?
Usually.
So Project Pegasus has the guardsmen, a division that have been out there with whoever the head of security was at that moment.
You're
for him.
Thinking, you guys are thinking too common sense. You guys are thinking like too common sense right now. Because in reality, that would be a full write-up in that sense of Project Pegasus. People be like, Project Pegasus, who's this? I don't remember that. Then you're going to go into a backstory, and then you're going to go like saying, wait a minute, you're supposed to be this high security, and you let out this guy Nitro. Somehow he escaped. Nitro, if we remember, he wasn't really, I don't remember him being like a bad, he's not a rhino. He's not, you know what I mean? He wasn't like a claw. He wasn't someone that you like saying, we got to make sure we have like 24 hours, 3 security cameras on him at all single times. That if one breaks down, we still got
he was. It's just
he killed Marvel.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm like thinking, my mindset is trying to think, how did he escape? For anybody to write that up in real world, to write that up, the amount of questions that they're going to have to answer. Just say the boy escaped. He's from where? He just escaped. I'm leave it at that.
Goes deeper,
but it's too much. It was too much for that. I think at the time writing it would have been too much question for people. People would not like want to understand that. And I would say now if we brought that back, now you could talk about Project Pegasus and just say, yeah,
Look,
he got out.
I'll hit you with this one, right?
Go.
Here's my thing. If they had to do this right now, we're gonna get to this point, right? So if I had to turn around and adapt it, here's my adaptation of Project Pegasus. Bear with me. I would give me give me like a Loki kind of style series, Project Pegasus. Right? You got to break it down like 2 halves. So give me that. I would love to see it live action. I don't want to see a cartoon. Give me live action. Give me Project Pegasus. Let's go down there like Loki, but you got to write it almost like Law and Order. Okay? So what I mean is, in Law and Order, what do we get every episode of Law and Order, regardless of what it is? SVU, criminal intent, whatever it is. They always break it in 2 halves. First half is the officers investigating certain things. Second half is the courtroom, right? Project Pegasus has got to be written the same way. First half is the guardsmen, the security officers dealing with what's going on. And then the second half is the research that is happening behind it. That's the way I see it. So when I hear the time, it's like, okay, fine, we know, and go back to that Nitro storyline. Nitro escaped. How did Nitro escape? Clearly, it had to be somewhat of an inside job. I would even go as far as bringing in other operatives to say someone helped Nitro escape, to go to all places, a small town in Wisconsin, to hide out until they were able to ship him out of North America. I would say it's the enemies of the state, not even other supervillains, right? Because supervillains are very self-serving. But because it's a government facility, if you have the Russians, the Germans, I don't know, Soviet Union, any superpower sitting there going, this guy killed off Captain Marvel. This guy explodes with the power of X amount of, bomb force or whatever. They've had him there. Maybe we can bribe him, get him, understand him, use him against him, and the whole thing is always having enemies on your enemy soil, right? So you have these cells like Prince Namor turned around and he's got Atlantean cells of operatives within the U.S. government because it's a political move to keep an eye on the enemy. And if something goes wrong, they can kind of do guerrilla warfare tactics. So someone from the inside had to get into Project Pegasus, help Nitro escape, get him out down to Wisconsin, lie low here until we can make proper arrangements to get you out of the country. No problem. And then by some fluke, he let himself be seen, got changed down by the amateur team. At the time, they were amateur, which was the New Warriors, because it wasn't the traditional New Warriors. This is where it came out. So I would love to see a show breaking down what happens at Project Pegasus and behind the boardrooms. And I want to hear how they have like Billions or Succession. I want to hear them saying, hey, man, someone from Roxanne Oil is trying to buy this patent, or they're making a bid at this company. We have to go and talk to Stark International, Stain International. We got to talk to some of these other people so they don't buy this technology, try to use it against us or stop us from it. I can see the potential risk in this, and and have those discussions play out. And there we can get a whole level of other heroes mentioned. It's like, hey, do you realize that Reed Richards said he worked on this thing that goes into another dimension called the negative zone? Negative zone? What kind of energy is in the negative zone? Well, we know that's analysts. He's got that cosmic tube that's underneath his neck. There's a lot of things that can happen. It doesn't have to be the big over-the-top superhero battles. It's the boardroom battles that happen. It's
perfect. No, go. I'm tagging in.
Yeah, it's those things that pop out, and you're like, oh, it's the inner workings. That's the word I'm looking for. It's the inner workings of how normal people live in a superhero world. Right now, every movie we've seen superheroes living in a normal world. But how do normal people deal with living with superheroes around them 24/7? It's almost like, all right, you live in Tokyo, there's a risk of Godzilla. How do you live day to day knowing that Godzilla can show up? It's like every time you see a flock of seagulls, and I don't mean the band, you see a flock of seagulls show up, it's like, this could go wrong. It's the Thunder Lizard.
Yeah, but that's Astro City. Now, I like your idea. I'd tweak it a little bit.
Okay. Go on. And I love when we have this. I'll tell you, Larry, this has happened every once in a while that we just have a story. We just build off of each other. So go. I got a couple of bricks to bring to the foundation. Let's go. Go on, Larry.
Here's what I do. I now think of a combination of still the split level, but more SWAT, and CSI.
Okay,
So
all
you've
right.
got the one group doing the science and getting all the objects, like, whatever happened to Loki's spear?
100%. 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
100%.
And then you've got the team that's going out after these villains, say, oh, I don't know, new champions, new warriors type. Not
Okay.
big guys, but lesser guys. But they're working with the government as the SWAT team to go out and get these villains that have energy powers.
All right. So perfect. Now here's my head was adding on something to the third arc to Larry's. Yours perfect. Now here's what I would do. Okay, so we're gonna make this like a Loki. We're gonna do like a Loki live action. We're getting 3 seasons out of this, but this is how it's gonna. This my vision by what you guys said. I'll go with you and Barry first. So yeah, we're gonna do a Law and Order type of scenario. The courtroom, the judgment room, and then for the story, you do at the third arc, you do like a prequel because he's out now. Someone had to, like you said, go through the planning stage. And I want that third arc to be dual in the sense like you hear the conversation of the inmates and you hear the conversation of the boardrooms. Like you're saying, hey, the day-to-day, this was what's happening, whatever the case. But we got Jello on Thursdays, that kind of, that. Everybody thinks it's a normal day, because I like seeing, I don't know if you ever watch, it's on TV right now, Lazarus, the Lazarus Project?
Lazarus Project by BBC. Yeah, they're on season 2. Larry, if you can find it, watch it.
So watch it. So at least you know with that, you got the operative, you got the people inside, you got the higher up all talking kind of scenario. So what I would like, it will look really, really nice if you had show 1, like we have, like say whatever, 8 shows or 10 shows. One show is the CI is the law, the judge, and the prison as one show. Mm-hmm. Second show is the CSI and the SWAT type of conversation. Now you can either have that they basically follow back as a next day, following up on the same storyline. Like this is what happened progressing in the law. And then you have that, or have the cops ones first and you lead right into the law. So it's always A and B, A and B, A and B. Right. And going in the storyline. But to me, we don't have anything like that where you have a progression of story, like, because those are really is the intricate process of going through any type of law show, any type of detective show, whatever the case to be. You have the different subsections of the storyline. And normally they stop here and we just assume the rest is there, or we start here, whatever. Oh, here we are. And we forget that. Why can't we have all 3? And I think it would actually be nice that you can at least tie in that one story arc. So the story arc is going for like 2 episodes, A and B. You start off with, this is what happened. There's a big explosion up in Wisconsin. What the hell's going on? Whatever the case to be. All right, guys, gear up. We're going to investigate. Guys, get in the truck. Go check it out. Now it turns into, just like Thor, when they first discovered the hammer was, on the ground. Everybody started building up and started to work around it. You're just doing from that standpoint. The next day now, you're realizing, oh, wait, the story now starts off. You find out Nitro escaped. We have him. We're taking him into custody. We're bringing up charges and all that kind of stuff, and so forth and so forth. And to me, it would always be great that we're now trying to figure out the story of how this all happened. And the very last arc of Part B tells us how it actually started. Then you start seeing the storyline 6 months before. I need to get out of here like night now. I can't take this place. People are getting upset. Okay, Nitro, listen, I've been working on something. I've been watching the guys. I see when they come, the rotation is, Billy, I'm always nice and friendly with Billy, and I know if I really, I can just, listen, I'm a pickpocket by trade. I'm able to get this keys. I can organize it X, Y, X, Y, X, Y, X, Y. And you start seeing on the final third act how he escaped, the plan set up, who he talked to, who he got to rub shoulders with and get barter with them. Listen, I'm going to give you a bunch of smokes for access for this. Now, people might say it's going to get tiring at the end. If
Not
you
really.
look at no, but let's say some people might say that, but then if you go to the TV show Prison Break, look how long they did Prison Break.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of stories and the amount of setups they did for that. Listen, there's too many arcs in there that you can pull up that you're not going to double up as much on the final arc, the final act of how that prisoner escaped. To me, that will be a 1, 2, 3 trio. All three of us put that in together. That to me will be the wildest show ever.
Okay,
Honestly.
so you're basically telling me what we're seeing is opening scene, guardsman armor, and maybe a couple other minor superheroes show up at a house. Boom.
Okay, we start. Yeah, well, let's start that to kick down the door. We can start that. I start that as the alarm going off, like the firehouse kind of scenario. All right, we gone out. Or Act 1,
right.
Screen open up. All right, guys, go.
Right, but then we get into the investigation and so on. The things happening. We get into the government stuff coming up, saying, "Hey, what the fuck happened?" And then maybe episode 3, we get 6 months ago.
You see, my scenario is I didn't want to go episode 3, so I would have done episode 1, episode 2. But it's we will now be accustomed to. We all know that when they do any particular continuation, it's always going to continue to the next one, whatever. But yeah. I would have one story is basically 3 parts. It's like 1/3 is 2/3 of one show. And then the last third of that, and you know what I mean? It's like it cuts in that no matter what, it's a smooth transition.
So you have your main story, and you have a subplot going the whole time throughout the whole series.
Going for the whole time, whatever the case may be. So I don't go in for a 3rd episode. I'd rather have it all done by the last half or the last 2/3 of or the last third or the last half, whatever the case may be, of the 2nd episode is when they start the whole. This is how it started. So the whole time now we're all trying to figure out the whole show. Going through, being our own little, private detective, trying to figure out. I honestly, like I've said in the show, man, I love Castle. So I'll be like throwing theories up like crazy, seeing what sticks, what makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll throw stories like Castle.
You see, I just see that big explosion, 5 minutes in. Like, what the hell? That's your hook.
Yeah.
Look, exactly. And then it's a matter of who's responsible. Was the guardsmen not? Clearly, they know they're chasing Nitro. They know what can be done. They should have scoured that area, right? If we're going with a comic book version, if there's an elementary school across there, now the school could be empty at the time, or it could be daytime. But we could see that. I could see the guardsmen flying in and saying, "Okay, you've located them. Do not move in." And then someone gets antsy, maybe out of the junior superhero team, and it starts. Right? As much as that happens, it comes down to questions of. How did he get out? Who helped him? And how was he not properly contained? Or how come you didn't survey the area before engaging? Right. Those are a lot of questions, and they got to defend. So Project Pegasus is almost trying to apprehend the villain and defend themselves at the same time and trying to deflect blame. And then to your point, it's not just about Nitro. You're right. What happened to Loki's spear? Let's look at the MCU and some of the other items that have been lost.
Yeah. But before we get there, the other thing about that is then you can get into the dealing with the aftermath and even possibly bringing up the registration.
Yes.
Listen, when you said that earlier, my mind went there and I'm like saying, we're not going to pull that. We're not going to pull that thread. We pulled it. Okay, cool. So, but yeah, that exactly both points you were saying about missing items and stuff like that. Those are stories that you can have. You can have a 2-arc story or 2-episode story for something like we're saying. You can have 1 episode about what happened to Loki's staff.
Outcome.
Where is it? And you have another story type of arc where we're not talking about the villains or who's inside. Let's start talking about the other end of Project Catamus, hear me.
Pegasus.
Project Pegasus in regards to, mysterious, off-world type of, items, stuff that are unknown, and we want an answer to it. Yeah, we can start studying about that. So what's this about? I don't know. It's some type of, radiation. It's like, energy. And you go through different fields. Then we start going into the CSI. We start doing CSI Las Vegas when we start testing out stuff on pigs. And, it becomes so tactical. You're like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, even me and my crazy self, I figured that makes sense. That makes sense.
Great. Rod's creating space orcs.
Let's go. Let's go.
Have you on the show?
I'm telling you, listen, Marvel, there's 3 people here. We have some ideas. We can do something. Let's have a conversation.
Even if it's not even live action, even in the comic book, to your point, right? Project Pegasus, I know it's still around. It's
still around.
There. Do
There's
something.
Gotta be some
That's
aftermath.
my main pet peeve. I find that a lot of writers within the past couple of years are always trying to create the next big villain, next big event, next big location. But there's locations that have been established for years that have just quietly gone away and no one's talked to them. No one's used them. They're just there. Stop trying to make the next big thing all the time. Like currently I'm seeing like Nightcrawler as a Spider-Man costume. I'm like, and they changed that whole history. Don't even get me started on that. Thank you.
Listen, my mind is blowing up on this part right now because in reality, we've seen shows who do stuff like, say, we're talking about James Bond and having that. So in reality, someone had a joke saying that someone had a script somewhere was saying kind of joke like saying, hey, this is the layer that someone had. It's up for sale. Can we buy it? So if there have been actual physical addresses, physical locations that have been known in the MCU, or not MCU, in the Marvel universe, in the Marvel comic book world for so long, no one is using it. Okay, we have damage control. Why the hell don't we have? There should be under Shield should have a way of knowing all these other locations. Who has these locations? And either if they're not being surveillance because they're no longer being used, fine. But that uninterrupted volcano still has 10 inches of steel wall. There's a subfloor in there. Someone could literally just move in and live in there. Who could go in there? Some villain realized, you know what? I came across this. Pulling like a Bruce Wayne. I came across this cave and I just realized, wow, I could probably use this. And someone uses it. And no one knows for like about a year as they're building up their organization, building like a Cobra commander and Cobra, hiding us somewhere that no one knows. Listen, if the place has already been established, if no one's using it, we're going to go with a storyline like, yeah, that organization, they ran out of money. Real talk. You need funds. You need capital to keep an organization going. And if you can't do any more black market stuff to keep money coming in, listen, that organization is going out of business. They didn't have a proper financial advisor to help them how to put money together. Shame on you. Guess what? Your loss is my gain. 10 years from now, I'm going to use that volcano and have myself something going on there. Our nation.
That's
right at the beginning.
Rod, stop squatting at Department H.
Tell you. Put me out in the field, coach. I'm ready.
Department H. There we go. There we go. See, Larry, you said it at the very beginning of this episode, right? If you want some money, you're building the X Mansion. Now let's go back for half a second with that logic. What happened in the X Mansion? Now, multiple times it gets blown up, it gets destroyed. But the lower levels always survive. Who realized that? My boy, Cable. And when it was New Mutants, Cable came involved, and he's like, hey, we're here at the X Mansion. Don't worry, the sub-levels survived the explosion. We're going to live in the sub-levels because there's everything we need for medical, transportation, computers, danger room, living quarters that are all there and more below level. And he just moved the rubble out of the way of the trap door. And that's where he started off with the New Mutants when Cable came on board. And then they changed to X-Force. And that was their base of operations until the X-Men came back and said, we're building this back up. Wait a minute, someone's living in our lower levels. I've been living your lower. Heck is you. Hey, you don't know me, but I know all of you. Hey, Dad, what? I'm out. Okay. The Cyclops, and he was gone. Okay.
Smoke bomb.
And that's the whole thing is that even though these buildings are there, my favorite show I like to watch is Tales of the Abandoned. Okay. You watch Tales of the Abandoned, they go worldwide. They find all these abandoned bridges, abandoned buildings, and it's all dealing with a lot of wartime stuff. And you look at it and you're like, holy crap. Okay. How come we don't have something like that right now? And now going back to, as you're saying, Damage Control in the MCU found all this alien technology from the first Avengers movie that's just lying across New York and they're cleaning up. You're trying to tell me Project Pegasus is not going to try to get some of that stuff to understand the energy and stuff more behind it than that? Okay, that's a fail right there. In the Marvel comic books, Project Pegasus is there. It's still got a lot to answer for. It's got a lot it can do. And it also led to other technology that led to the Vault. That they use there. You got the Guardsmen. They had a held down version of the Iron Man armor. Whereas at first it was Tony Stark made one, and then Stain International mass produced it with the intent of mass producing it for other people outside the Guardsmen to sell it to other divisions. So now, how does the normal person deal with superpowers, especially in New York, because there's so many there? How do you deal with it? Well, now I've got power armor. It might not stop someone like Gladiator from the Shi'ar, right? It might not stop him, but it can definitely stop that low-level criminal that's using a gun. It can stop that low-level guy who's trying to drive away from me. I'm more than equipped enough to deal with Daredevil, and maybe Power Man and Iron Fist, depending on how the levels of this armor is. I can bulk it up. I can modify it. That is Project Pegasus. And then dealing with energy dampers, energy weapons. It's like they should go in there and say, oh, Nitro, this is his power. This is how it works on a cellular level, molecular level. We have something that can stop that and contain the explosion. So when he tries to explode, we hit him with this ray and it causes a bounding thing so he can't explode. He just kind of gets chubby and then he goes back and he's like, what happened to my power? He's like, haha, we got you. Someone knock him out, drag him back to jail. These are all the things that we are missing in the Marvel Universe comic books, right? And even on the MCU, that I think that should be addressed or brought to light today. Don't give me the next new big event like Kokora Island with the X-Men. Yeah, that was how many years ago? And now you brought that back and you've changed that. Okay, I want to see my Project Pegasus come back. If Cadmus is still around, Star Labs is still around, Project Pegasus should be a lot more forefront. And I want to see the inner workings, especially that you put all these directors in place. You've got security officers in place, and your security officers have ties to a lot of the Marvel universe. And some of them had to go and deal with the Annihilation War.
Yeah.
All right, that's my rant.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna get to the end of this episode, but Larry, any last thoughts on Project Pegasus here? I mean, you brought this up, and I love this because I don't think as fans, and even there's stuff I didn't know, right? You educated me on the whole parallel with Jack Kirby and Ben Grimm, which was beautiful. So, what are your last thoughts? What do you hope to see, like to see? Maybe going forward from in the future, be it comic book or live action?
Well, I mean, we've just got Sword in the MCU.
Yeah.
I don't know. Although they call it something else, I think. And Project Pegasus could tie you into that. You've got the fact how the Marvels stuff interrelates, especially the band that Ms. Marvel's wearing.
Yeah,
all of that kind of stuff. This should be, studied in the MCU. Then you've got in the actual comics, and that's where I really want to see is I want to see some storylines. They don't have to be a long storyline or anything like that. Like, your Energy Wars, which would be a great idea, though, especially if you get it going between the different governments. But have it show up every once in a while. I mean, you see Star Labs in every episode of The Flash, every, almost
100%.
every Superman comic. So, even if it's just, okay, somebody's cruising through the Adriatic and they see the old sign for it, it's falling
Project
apart.
Pegasus.
It's falling apart, All they know, because it was known that it was a place that they were doing studies, they just didn't know what they were studying as much.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the fact that there's actually an active nuclear power plant beneath this thing in the Adirondacks. You could blow up New York. So if it's abandoned, how many supervillains would grab that?
Oh,
100%.
Organizations. There's AIM, there's Hydra.
And especially when you got people like Rod who's going to move into like Department H or come down here and take over the vault. Since the raft is basically where everybody's going now.
I'm just saying. Not a bad idea, Larry. Not a bad idea.
Sometimes we don't got to go all the way forward to have a great storyline. I like how you named that the Energy Wars. I mean, but that's essentially what it is. And clearly, every team has an energy casting person, be it if they're real or not. From Firestar, Colossus. Look at his brother,
Michael.
And Michael.
Yeah, Michael.
Right. That right. Vulcan, which is the brother. That's it. The Summers brothers. Enough said. That's it. Right. Cyclops, Havoc, and Vulcan. Like all of them are energy manipulation to a certain degree, at a high level. Yeah. Okay, right. We're not even getting into the Phoenix.
I was literally about to say Phoenix. Huh? Got it. There you go. 100%.
Right? Like any of them, like they're all there. Iron Fist, even though it's chi, he still gets the energy around his fist.
Mm-hmm. Question: okay. How is that possible? You need to inquire about that.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, exactly. Any last words, Rod?
Listen, I'll just say Larry just had a good point in regards to talking about Star Labs. That is all over, and it makes sense. Going back to what we're saying, when you have certain things that is lying around or certain things like that, how come Project Pegasus? Well, how come? We won't say the name, but how come there's not an organization or someone who's working about it or investigating about it? Someone should have been there. Don't call it if you don't want to follow, the source material and call it Project Pegasus, fine, but you should be something right there. But if you don't have anything, Project Pegasus is right there. Use the name, use it. So I just say, listen, this is a great time to bring it back into the forefront. There's a lot of items that are missing. If you want to name it Project Pegasus and call it the mystical vault, where everything mystical or anything that has a potential to be a deadly weapon or something that could cause some type of catastrophe, you put it in a container and send it to PP, please. Thank you. Thank you to Project P. Please send it to PP. Thank you. Send it over to the PP world. Let's call it. I don't want to make a joke. Call it whatever. Stuff should be in you should be pulling the Italian job, having say five different armored trucks. You don't know which one has the actual part, and everybody's zigzagging getting to a destination so no one can pick it up. I'm just telling you, stuff like that should literally be done at least once a month. In comics, listen, choose two issues, two IPs, two separate issues. At some point, let someone talk about it and touch into the world of Project Pegasus. That's it. Alternate it, Marvel. Just alternate it. Let it someone talk about it in X-Men. Let someone talk about it in Iron Fist, somewhere. That once in a while, someone saying, out of all the 30 comics, I keep coming back to this Project Pegasus. What the hell is this about? You're going to learn today, sir. You're going to learn today.
Hey, between Darkhawk and Quasar, that's a good jumping on point.
Yep.
Larry said it before. He's 100% right. Quasar and Darkhawk. They have ties to it, 100%. Right? Yeah. Well, everyone, this brings us back to the end of our episode. Unfortunately, this has been a pleasure. It was a blast. And when I say blast, I know it was an energy episode. So here we go. So once again, this is the Iconis podcast. And as always, I'm one of your hosts, Larry 3D. On my side is Rod C.
DJ Rod C.
And our guest again is Larry Reclusado.
Yes.
I'm learning. There's hope for Larry yet.
There's still hope.
There's no hope. And this whole world has been, been created